Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson on the USBN Sports Podcast. And this podcast is brought to you by Jump. Jim Serger's seventh book is now up for sale with six other his Anderson Township buddies. Jim tells the story, a true story of what happened to them at the Van Halen concert. Book is available anywhere books are sold or jimserger.com. Super excited that Jim's sponsoring these podcasts, and it's pretty exciting because he's got this book coming out, and it's going to come out
Yep.
in January. So, joining me as always is my co-host Steve. And Steve, our next guest is a guy that I just remember, been doing the games for so long, and a guy that had a great football career at Anderson and played at OU. And you and I have talked about doing our top 25 running backs in Anderson high school history.
Yeah,
This guy's got to be on that list there at Anderson High School.
no question.
So excited to talk to Joe, and he was a great football player at Anderson.
Well, he's going to bring back a lot of memories for us, and I tell you, back when under Coach Siriano, and he started to get the machine going, and Joey was right smack in the middle of that, and just kept elevating the program, each year, especially when it comes to the running backs. But man, what a great athlete Joey was, and I can't wait to get into this and catch up with him.
Yeah, I mean, just I'll throw this out real quick on his stats. He ran for 1,523 yards, 7.4 average on carries,
Yeah,
and 24 touchdowns his senior year. So that long line of list of the running backs that you have there at Anderson High School.
I,
Right
I
there.
can remember like it was yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. So as I said, joining us is Joe Sherrill. Joe, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Hey guys, thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here.
So let's get about that. Let's talk about growing up in Anderson Township. Let's talk about what side of the Anderson you lived in, and just the overall experience of living in Anderson.
Oh, I grew up on the bad side of Anderson, the Turpin side of Anderson. So
Oh,
yeah, so I knew a lot of the guys on the Anderson team who I would come to play with because we all played youth football together through the Anderson Youth
yeah,
Wildcats, and
Yep.
met a lot of those guys there. And that's actually where I met Mike Soriano. So he played on our team, and that's how I
yeah.
met Coach Soriano. And growing up, through that program, and then just you'd hear everything about Anderson, you'd hear nothing about Turpin. And so yeah. So like eighth grade, I think I played 1 year of Turpin football, and that was enough. And then I was like, I've got to get out of here. So
Yeah.
back then, you couldn't transfer districts or schools, right? So we had to actually move to Anderson district so I could start my freshman year at Anderson.
No kidding. Wow, I did not know that. I did not know you were on that Turpin. So you obviously made a good move coming to the good side. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So Joe, let's talk about what sports you were playing in your youth. Obviously, you played football. What other sports did you play? Because you said you played for the Wildcats, right, in football?
Yeah, so played football mainly, was a big baseball player too. And then once I think sort of junior high and through high school, I started doing track. So I was a sprinter and then 400-meter guy, and then I also did high jump, which was probably one of my better field events. And then so I think freshman year I went a little nuts. I kind of played four sports,
oh
and
wow.
then each year that I went through, I wound up dropping one just because I couldn't do the time commitment. So
Yeah.
so I was doing four all throughout. So the big ones: football, basketball, baseball, and track.
Yeah. Well, I remember you playing basketball, obviously, because I was there. But like I think that was your freshman and sophomore year. Is that right?
Yeah. Freshman and sophomore year. Yep.
Okay. All right. And so going back, so at the junior high, so I mean, Danny and I ask this all the time, just because of the crazy times. So were you at the high school from seventh grade on, or was there a junior?
No, just freshman year. Yeah. So I went to Turpin my seventh and eighth grade year, and then transferred to Anderson freshman through
But
senior.
but but were you in the high school at the time? Was it grade 7 through 12, or
At
was there a middle
Turpin,
school? Yeah.
yeah. It was all combined there, so we had everybody
Okay.
together. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then you came over your freshman year,
Right.
which helped all the sports you were playing, because you said you already knew some guys.
Yeah. I mean, I knew a lot of those guys. I mean, Chad Von Lardy, my quarterback, I played with, since I was like 9 years old. So I knew
Yeah.
Chad, knew Brad Hensley, a lot of those guys who weren't in the what is it, the Forest Hills
Yeah.
program. Those are
Yeah.
like the two competing ones. So yeah, so we had a handful of those guys who were Anderson kids that played at the Anderson Youth.
Okay. So before we get into the football part of it, obviously, you said you ran track too as well, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah.
so talk a little bit about Mr. Wolf and Coach Wolf and that how that whole experience was for you, because I'm sure you were really good at track as well.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Wolf was great. We had Jed. I can't remember Jed's last name.
Jed
Maybe
Davis.
Davis. Jed
Jed
Davis
Davis. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
was quite the character.
Yeah, oh yeah, sure.
They both put us through some really grueling workouts. I mean, we'd run from Anderson High School down to the Withrow Nature Preserve and then up that long drive from, I mean, it was probably a
Wow.
mile from the
Yeah.
gate to the top of the hill. And we'd
Yeah.
do it forwards and we'd do it backwards and then we'd run back. I mean, those were some like really grueling events. Ran with Brian Capral. He was a big
Yeah.
sort of mentor to me because we did a lot of the same events, high jump and 400, and we were on the 400-meter relay team together. And yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. Coach Wolf was great. I mean, very calming presence out there. I mean, very knowledgeable. But yeah, I remember Jed was just the wild man, and Jed would just kick our butts nonstop.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually graduated with Jed, so we kind of know how
Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah.
great.
we kind of know how Jed is, and Jed's a good dude, man. We haven't
Yeah.
talked or seen him in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah. So let's get into a little bit of the football, and we kind of talked off air, and I was talking to Coach Soriano, and time just for me, just I remember you playing, but I just don't remember like kind of all the details. But back in the day, we had all those great running backs. You go from all the Andriadises, and then so for you had PJ Schiano and Ryan Josephowski ahead of you, which were two great running backs. So talk a little about that. Was that hard waiting your time? Because I think Vince told me you were kind of like the when you were down on more of the goal line when Ryan and PJ were still the running backs, so you were more on the goal line. But was that a little hard for you not to get in and play as much with those two guys ahead of you?
Um, yeah, I mean, it definitely was hard. I mean, I think probably more so. I mean, it's a big jump, right? So when you start as a sophomore and then you're playing against guys sometimes 3 years older than you,
Right.
so there weren't a lot of expectations there. I mean, we were still doing varsity, and then we'd have JV games and everything after
Right.
that. So I kind of had my fix there. But yeah, junior year was a little tough. I guess the only salvage of it was that I got to play strong safety, and so
Yeah.
coach was able to get me on the field some form, in some way. So, I really liked that position a lot too. And I understood, right? I mean, these guys were seniors. They had paid their time. I mean, it was just kind of the succession of things. So, I mean, yeah, it wasn't great, but I was definitely grateful the time I was able to, the times I was able to get in there and carry the ball. And yeah, PJ and Ryan were they were great, talented backs too. So, and different in their own ways. PJ was more of a sort of a straight ahead slasher, just speed guy. Ryan was pretty elusive. I thought Ryan was a really good catching the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah.
But yeah, those guys definitely deserve to play for sure.
Yeah, and then you bust out your senior year and you have the big year, so that's definitely rewarding for that. But we just talked about Coach Wolf. You've a couple of guys that we've talked to have had the privilege of playing for two Hall of Fame coaches in Anderson High School history, Mr. Wolf and then Coach Soriano. Talk a little bit about I got to coach with Coach Soriano. No kind of I thought I knew football and I didn't know it, and he's just a great guy. Just talk a bit about Coach Soriano.
Coach is great. I mean, if you had to look up sort of like the definition of like a coach, I mean, he would be it. Like was the ultimate motivator. I think somebody had sent around in one of my group chats with some of that old high school buddies, one of his speeches before the state playoffs games
Yes.
in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And even then, like you hear it and you kind of get chills. But I mean, he was, aside from being just a great motivator, he always demanded the best of you. There was no cutting corners with him. Strict, regimented. I mean, all the things that you need to have a successful program. And outside of off the field, great guy. You could have a conversation with him, joke around with him, and he was fantastic. I mean, he was, like I said, he was the whole reason that I switched over, just because I could see the way he
Right.
was coaching and grooming his players to play at the next level. I mean, it was just yeah, I mean, he brought the whole package as far as a head coach, everything you could ask for.
Yeah, Joe, you're gonna love this. That so I still obviously broadcast the games, and we do a show now from the bar. There's a bar, it's Anderson Township or Anderson Bar and Grill there. It's on Beachmont there, and I've got Coach Soriano as a guest analyst. So he comes on and he talks about the game that Anderson just played and the game coming up. And you talk about he still gets fired up even just as an analyst. Just like he'll get on there and he's getting he gets
the vein bulging in his
yes,
neck a bit. Yeah, nice.
yes, he does. Yeah. He gets the vein out, so it's kind of cool to still have him involved, and he still loves Anderson High School football. I mean, that's all he talks about, and he loves it. But yeah, you're gonna have to check that out sometime when we
absolutely.
Yep.
So Joe, you had obviously an unbelievable senior year, which one of the things that Danny and I have done is one of these podcasts. We did a top 10 quarterbacks in Anderson history, and so we're going to be doing one with the running backs, and which obviously you're going to be included on that. So with the unbelievable senior year you had, talk about how the recruiting process worked, and when did that start for you, and the feelings of I could play not just at the next level but D1. So how did all that begin, and how did it get you to where you went?
Well, I think we always got, Coach was a big proponent of us going up to the Ohio State camp in the summer, so you get a lot of exposure there. Just because they would invite all the other coaches from Ohio, just different schools. And so that's kind of where it originally started for me going up there. I think my junior year of going the summer before my junior year. And it just kind of progressed from there. So obviously junior season happened, got some touches on the ball, was playing mainly strong safety. And then going into senior year was when it really picked up. A lot of it was, it's so different from, I think, how guys get recruited nowadays. I mean, with the restrictions,
Right.
Or lack of restrictions, I should say. Communication. There's no social media. There's no cell phones back then. So it was a lot of like letters, and I think my dad still has like a huge bucket of like these just letters. Dad, please throw those out. But it was meeting with, you'd come down, coaches would come to Coach Soriano's office during the school day. He'd call you down. You'd meet with them, talk to them. I think before I started my senior year, I had a few offers from mostly the MAC schools.
Yeah.
And then had met with one of the Air Force Academy coaches, actually at Coach Soriano's house because he was good friends with him. But yeah, I mean, so it was kind of different. Like I think there was probably a lot more hands off back then than it is now. Less communication, but it was mainly just the MAC schools. I think had some interest from, like I said, Air Force, Colorado State, UC. So I'd taken a couple of visits to UC and IU with I don't know if you guys remember Aaron Brown. He was the lineman my year.
Yeah.
He and I went out to IU and met Coach Jim Harbaugh there. So,
Really?
or sorry, John Harbaugh.
John Harbaugh, yeah.
The one at the Ravens now. So, it was all just sort of very relaxed and not nearly as intense probably now. There was no, signing day, switching of hats, that sort of thing. I mean, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Wow. So you ended up at Ohio University. So how did that come to narrow your choices down to end up going there?
Yeah, so OU was one of the schools that definitely said that they saw me as a running back, and so I didn't want the option of potentially being switched over to defense or safety or even linebacker. So OU at the time was running the triple option, so they were looking at me as a fullback, and I just because of my size and fullbacks got the ball a lot. They had a really great running back at the time. Fullback was the leading rusher at the school for quite a while, Steve Hookman. And he was just lighting it up. I mean, he was 1,200 yard seasons, 1,400 yard seasons. He was outstanding. It also helped too, I think, like Jim Grobe was the head coach at the time, and Coach Grobe came from Air Force Academy. His whole staff did. A lot of continuity between them. They either played or coached with each other or played and coached together. So his staff was fairly mature and had been together for quite a number of years. And again, I think it's just that thing that goes back to sort of the comfort, being able to have a conversation with the guy, but just the way he carried himself and having that sort of strong presence as a leader, were some of the things that really just drove me to OU.
Yeah. So let's talk about your experience at OU. I mean, were there any other local guys that were playing at OU? Did you know anybody else?
Yeah, we had a few actually. We had Andre Parker, so coach for Winton Woods, and
Sure.
now he's at Princeton. So
He's still,
yeah,
yeah.
Know that. Wow.
yeah. So Dre and I played together. We were the same class. Wiz White wound up coming later on. He was another Winton Woods guy, another running back, and then Keith Brooks was also another Winton Woods guy, running back. We had Dave Murphy. You remember that name from Coleraine, quarterback?
I do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, back in the day, like
Okay.
the 13-0 state
Yes, I
champs.
remember.
Yeah,
quarterback. So, and then we had Sean Murphy from LaSalle, Jay Roden from Coleraine. Yeah, I mean there was a handful of guys. I mean, it was a good, between there and Columbus, obviously they mainly just got their guys from in-state. That was their big recruiting locations in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So
Was that a different thing for you to, you going from Anderson, running that to going to a triple option? Did it take much for you to figure all that out?
yeah, absolutely. Steps, I mean, was key for as a fullback if you're running midline or veer option, making sure that your steps are in order, that you're meeting the quarterback at the right point at the right time, and then just that exchange, right? Just you're so used to wanting to clamp down on it and go, you just got to ride it out and feel that quarterback. It's a lot of communication between you and him. And I was fortunate enough to have sort of a freshman come in with me just after me actually, and played with me all the way through the 4 years that I was there. So we had a pretty good chemistry together. But yeah, it definitely a different feel, especially when you're not getting the ball and you're just getting smashed by the defensive tackle every time when you're. Yeah, actually that was what when I was getting recruited by Bowling Green and I told him I was going to OU. He's like, well, that's all we're going to teach our tackles to do is come down on that fullback and smash it. It's like, that's fine with me. So
bring it on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, like, well, though, yeah, let me switch then. No, but yeah, it totally different scheme. I mean, great for academies. I think now I don't know. Obviously, nobody really runs the triple anymore, but modern offenses have their place too. So
Yeah, you would die right now if you saw the Andersons offense. It's predominantly throwing the football. It's probably about
I'd say
70.
yeah, putting up 50 a game. Yeah, you've got to be throwing it. So
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's so you ended your career basically with like 1,106 yards and you had 10 touchdowns. And what did you have any game that at OU that really stuck out, or that you remember?
I wouldn't say one particular game, but always when we played Miami, that was a big matchup for us, obviously. And my first year playing them is like getting significant amount of time. When I was starting, we had played them at OU, and they had Travis Prentice, and that was like the big, he was their leading rusher at the school at the time, and our defense did great. I mean, we just shut them down. We wound up winning the game. I mean, it was a very cool feeling to have that opportunity, and then after that it was steady dose of Ben Roethlisberger, so it didn't always go quite so well. But yeah, so the Miami games were always fun to compete in.
Yeah, so and I was just sitting there looking at some of the other places you played. Did you played Ohio State, Iowa State, West Virginia, and Pitt, and Florida? I mean, that had to have been some really cool places to go to and playing in front of that crowd. I mean, it had to have been, you go to, I know Anderson had some pretty good crowds, but you're going for something real minimal or whatever, and then you're going to this, and it's like, the swamp and all that. So I mean, it had to have been crazy.
Yeah, and one of the other ones was I got to travel to Wisconsin when they had Ron Dane there. I was a true freshman, but just to get to see him tower over our defensive linemen is just to be ginormous. But yeah, I mean some of those you mentioned were definitely the highlights. Ohio State was so loud you never experience anything like that. You can't hear the guy next to you talking. Iowa State was in, I think it was at the tail end of August in Ames, Iowa, which is not a great place to be weather-wise. It was 115 on the turf, I think.
Oh my
Something.
goodness.
Yeah, and I played every snap. So I
Really?
played every snap of offense. And then the opposite in Florida is the only time I've ever played in a game. That was when Rex Grossman was there. It actually got delayed because of rain. So we were in like the first quarter,
Oh,
torrential downpour. We all go in the locker room for 20, 30 minutes. We come back out and there's still like 2-3 inches of water on the field. I mean, it was insane, absolutely nuts.
That is crazy, man. You got some good names there. Got guys you played against, man. That's pretty sweet. Grossman and Dane, and I mean that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, yeah, and that's just that. It's not necessarily to mention sort of the MAC guys too, right? We had James Harrison was at Kent when I
Oh
was
yeah,
playing.
yeah.
Byron Leftwich, all the guys at Marshall. So
Aaron Leftwich,
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That is crazy, man. That's pretty awesome.
So let's get caught up to speed now, Joe, because obviously you don't, not obviously, but we're doing a Zoom, so you're not here in Cincinnati. Um, where you live and what you do and married kids and all that stuff, so people can get caught up with what you're up to.
Yeah, sure. So married to Sarah. She and I dated all through pretty much the last half of high school. So been together since then. We have 2 kids. I've got a daughter, Vivian, who's 14, and a son, Cameron, who's 12, who's just starting to do football and wrestling. So it's
Awesome.
been a big
Okay.
year for him. So
Nice.
that's really fun to watch him sort of step into that. We now live in Frederick, Maryland, so just about an hour north of DC. So I am a translational scientist at AstraZeneca. So I work on one of our asthma medications, and I basically try to understand how it's working in patients' bodies through our clinical samples that we take during trials.
Very nice.
That's pretty
Very
awesome.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome. So let's get to the. I know I probably should have done this to you and kind of put you on the spot. Let's. I didn't warn you about throwing this question at you, but give me your favorite memory from. Give me your favorite memory from high school.
Hold on a second. Was that a Bengals cup?
I just saw
Oh
that.
yeah,
Cup.
Not a boy.
So there's
it's
a
the new
Hoot
one.
Day.
It's the new one. So we do come back quite a bit. So actually, I was there for Thanksgiving, and I'll be there actually for
good.
Christmas. So
Good.
yeah, it's Skyline's still the one place that we have to hit up every time we're back in
Got to.
town. So
Yeah, I love
Not a
it.
boy.
I love it.
yeah, you can't take the Cincinnati out of the kid. So
Yeah,
There
I
you
cannot
go.
do that. So
Yeah.
give me your favorite maybe a high school memory.
I think it was probably from junior year when we came back and beat Harrison and just totally trashed those guys at Harrison.
Yeah.
The previous year they won on some fluke play at
I
the last
remember that.
second of the game.
I
And
They still
remember.
talk about that.
He took a
yeah,
knee.
yeah, I'm sure they
He
do.
was
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
His knee was down. I swear to God, his knee was down.
Yeah, that was one that the coaches prepared us like no other for. I mean, we were definitely ones to sort of get payback for that game, and that was a great experience just to go out because I mean it was a total just team effort. I mean, defense was on point, offense was killing them. I mean, it was a great game to be a part of.
And then college, I think you already kind of gave us the Miami of Ohio. Is that?
Yeah, any Miami of Ohio game was sort of the tops. Yeah, that was always fun to play in.
All right, now how about this? How about your favorite teacher? Do you have any favorite teachers or coaches? You can give me a coach too if you want.
Oh, I got to go with Cookie. Coach Cook was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my teacher too. He taught me how to type. If I think he taught me how to type. I don't know. Either that or I just watched him play video games or something in there in this classroom. But no, yeah, Cookie was great. I loved having him. Sort of as just you know, not only just sort of a leader at the running back position, but just as a sound voice of trying to calm me down when things got a little heated. But he was just a great guy. Yeah, teachers, man, that's hard to. So obviously, I went to the science field, so I would have to say one of my science teachers. I don't really remember their names.
There you go. That's good. So it's funny is Cookie's coaching at Anderson again.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's helping coaching the offense, kind of helping out with the offense.
Oh, nice, good.
He was gone for a little bit, and then he came back, and then the other thing too, Joe. I mean, what did you think about the Anderson win a state championship? That was pretty kind of cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I remember emailing Coach Geesting after that game. That was just that was an awesome moment to see that coming. He coach Geesting was my secondary coach when I played, so he was, well deserved. I mean, those guys had a great season, and it was I was hoping this team would make a run.
It was
Looked like
close,
they ran
man.
into some trouble there at the end, but
Yeah,
always catch up with Anderson, how they're doing during the season.
that's awesome. We're gonna have to get you to when you do come in town. Maybe you can make it for a golf outing, and we got a
Yeah.
lot of the guys that try to get there, and it's a usually a pretty good show. And Steve and I actually go out there and try to do it. We're awful.
Oh, likewise.
We
I'm absolutely
usually
terrible.
finish last. Yeah, we're pretty bad. But I know Coach Soriano was excited that I was talking to you. He told me to tell you he said hello, and
Oh, great. Thanks.
definitely gonna have to catch up with him when you get in town and try to maybe we can get all the guys together. Would love to get everybody together at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, well, Joe, we really appreciate you doing this. I know everybody's kind of busy and everything, and I really appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But this podcast, again, like we said, is brought to you by Jump. Jim Surger's 7th book is now up for sale with 6 other Anderson Township buddies. Jim tells the story of what happened to them all at the Van Halen concert. Book is available anywhere books are sold or jimsurger.com. And like I said, we're super, super excited to have Jim Surger. I don't know if you know him or not. If you know him or not, but he just a great dude. It's going to be awesome that he's sponsoring us. So, but again, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We really appreciate you joining us here. So for Dan Albers and Joe Sherrill and Steve Ellis, you've been watching This Week in Anderson. We'll catch you next week.